It's March 4th, 2023. We're here with my mom and dad, Kaz and Muriel Goodwich, and I thought it would be great to put a video together so that they can talk about the good old days from when they were born, when they were kids, and when they got married. Just kind of capture that on video because I get the opportunity to see them because I live nearby and talk about the good old days, but I thought we'd make a video for everybody. Okay, let's start. So we'll start with you, Mom. You were born November 27th, 1939.
Yes.
Where were you born?
I was born in Wakefield on Nahan Street in a house.
You were born in a house and not a hospital.
In a house.
And who were you named after? Were you named after anyone?
I was named after a nurse named Muriel.
So the nurse, no family history there at all?
No, none whatsoever.
Dad, you were born July 6th, 1940. Where were you born?
I was born in Revere, Massachusetts.
And were you named after anyone?
Well, I was named after my father. We both have the same, I would say, birth certificate saying Charles Kaz Goodwich, and I have Charles Kaz Goodwich. And I was named after my father, although I have an older brother, and, well, he was named Vincent. And someone would ask me once, how come your brother wasn't named after your father? And I had to explain to him that just before my mother and father got married, my grandfather on my mother's side was killed in an accident in the trains. And so my brother, his name was Vincent, so my brother was named really after him, and I was named after my father.
So that's an unusual situation. He was just the eldest child that's named after the father. But that's quite a story. So tell us a little bit more about your childhood. And Mom, I want you to talk about what it was like growing up in a 3-story apartment building with the rest of your family members. Tell us who was on each floor and what it was like having family living in the same building.
My aunt and uncle, my Aunt May, she took care of my grandmother and my grandfather. So she lived on the first floor. And my Aunt Josie and Uncle Mike and my Uncle Frank and Noni lived on the second floor. And we lived on the third floor.
When you say we, who's that?
My mother and father and my brother and myself.
You lived on the third floor.
We lived on the third floor.
So what was it like having all that family?
It was wonderful. If you didn't like what was eaten on the top floor, you go down the second floor, knock on the door, and ask what they're having for supper. It was great because I used to take care of my grandmother, so my aunt could go to work.
So everyone lived together, looked out for each other, and helped everybody.
Yes.
So, Dad, you grew up in Revere.
Yes.
On Floyd Street, and
well, that was one of the streets, but go ahead.
Okay, so you lived down the street from your grandmother and your uncles.
Yes.
So talk about how unique or how special that was.
Well, I would say you're talking really about my childhood, I guess, and it was nice it was all family kind of oriented. It seems like at that time, families all lived in the same area. I originally lived on Revere Street, which is about a block away, but within my childhood, we moved about 3 or 4 times and never moved over a block away. But living near my grandmother, most of the time I spent at my grandmother's because we lived on the 3rd floor in an apartment, and what would happen with us was similar to what your mother said over here, Muriel, was that Sundays came, and when we ate at home on Sundays, we would just walk down the street to my grandmother's house and knock on that door, not even knock on the door, just walk in, and it was a well-known place to say, Stata Gita Manja, which meant once you keep quiet, sit down and eat. Then that was it. All the time, Stata Gita Manja with my grandmother. So it was nice having 2 meals on a Sunday.
So that was fun. That must have been fun for everyone just hanging out all the time.
Yeah, well, that was my brother and I would normally end up doing that, most of the time we actually lived over at my grandmother's house. My mother worked, my father worked, so in my prior teen years, I guess you would call it, I was mostly in my grandmother's backyard, either digging up the ground so she can plant, because she had a big garden out back. So there was all kinds of work you could do, dig up the garden, plant, so tomatoes. I remember many times that when it was time for the tomatoes to get ripe, we'd go over there and bottle tomatoes, and it was her and I ate a lot of tomatoes and putting them up in bottles for tomato sauce and everything else. So it was nice. It was very comfortable to be, I guess, the family right around the corner and so forth and so on.
Yeah. So that's a good segue into what. Well, I'm going to start with Mom here. What did you do? Fun activities as a kid?
Really, I was a homebody. I always stayed within my aunt's houses and everything. I used to mind my cousin's kids and take them for walks. And I really never got in trouble or did anything bad.
So in your version of events, you never got in trouble.
Right.
No. So, Dad, what did you do when you were a kid for fun?
For fun?
I'm talking preteen, did you play baseball or?
Yeah, if you ever saw the movie Sandlot, that was precisely what was living my life, kind of speak. Early years, we were just a bunch of kids that once we got together, you get 4, 5, or 6 kids together, you run out to there was a lot behind the Paul Revere School, which I went to school, and it was one of those games you would play with, 6 kids, no hitting to right field. You hit the right field, it's an out, because you never had a right fielder if you were a right-handed batter. And the left-handed batter, you couldn't hit the left field.
Yeah.
So it was like that. And they'll only have 2 people up in bat, and one of the kids that was up in bat would be a catcher. But he was also be up at bat, so just a catch for the pitcher. It was a lot of fun. It was, and most of the time it was mostly like Sandlot, in terms of you get together 4 or 5 guys and then you find something to do. In the summertime it was baseball, and most of the time it was just baseball or hanging out. Or we had a marsh in back of us, and that was it. All your time was spent in the marsh. In fact, we'd have the fire department around once a year when the marsh accidentally would catch on fire a little bit, and you ended up with a nice skating ring out in the backyard, so to speak.
Accidentally, huh?
Yeah.
So so what did you do to make money as kids? Because you didn't have a lot of money growing up, so you must have worked or at least put some activities together. Well, you're taking care of your family, though, right?
Yeah. My mother used to just buy me stuff. She'd take me to the stores and she'd buy me clothes and stuff. We were very poor. We never had a car, so we could never go anywhere. Everything was done on buses and trains and stuff. But I wouldn't give it up for the world.
Yeah.
It was a great childhood.
Dad, what did you do to make money as a kid?
Well, again, both my mother and father worked, and we never had a car as well. So at the very few places that you could really go if you didn't have transportation, was always walking. I would picture it as that you probably lived in a 1 mile circle diameter where you spent most of your life. I know everything was within walking distance. The doctors, the meat market, the drugstore, everything was in walking distance. And but for money, two couple of things that we used to do. Like one of the big things that we did was I worked at a little, what would you say, clam shack. They called them clam shacks. There's 2 or 3 of them in around Revere. And you go there and you shuck clams. And shucking clams, you had to open them, remove the shells, you put them in a gallon can, and you had to have a big heap on the gallon because once they cleaned them up in the water, it would reduce down to a gallon, and you got paid like $1 for the gallon of clams after you got through opening. So what you do is you'd open a couple of them and give you enough money to go fool around on the beach or something like that, and that was it during the afternoon. And there was no union or anything if you want to look at it that way. Another thing that I did for a few dollars was between, I would say, 13 and 14 years old, we used to go down the Revere Beach. Revere Beach was the big thing. It was like a penny arcade. It was like, I don't know, it was all roller coasters.
Rides.
It was amusement rides, roller coasters.
And you weren't afraid to go down there.
Right.
Because everybody was so friendly. Not like the days now.
Well, it was quite different now. There was less population around as well. But I would go down there and work on little stands like where they throw balls and they break dishes or stuff like that. You break 3 dishes, you get a doll, and have to put the dishes back up and give them the balls back and all that kind of stuff. So those kind of things. But it was good. The beach was nice. It had a lot of activities on the beach. It's not like a hotels are today. It was mostly fun and games. That was it.
Yeah. I didn't know that you worked at an arcade. So that brings us up to your high school years. Who were your closest friends, and was there a specific place where you guys just hung out? Mom, we'll start with you.
No. All my friends were very, very nice. I used to take my cousin Kathy and would take a walk down Broadway and meet up with my girlfriend Nancy, and she'd have her nephew, and we'd walk Broadway and just walk back and forth and stop for an ice cream or something and take the kids home. I was really a homebody. I used to stay with my aunts and at her house, and I used to mind my grandmother so my aunt could go to work. And
so you've been taking care of people your whole life, huh?
Yeah, I have.
Well, she worked at the Stop and Shop too at that time too.
Well, we're not going to get there yet. So, yeah. How about your closest friends, and do you have a particular hangout?
My closest friends. My closest friends were in high school. People. It was work related in because I worked at the Stop and Shop, and a few guys worked there. Well, my closest friends in high school, I would say, like Bobby Serino. There was 2 Bobby Serinos, by the way. He had 2 different guys named Bobby Serino. I call this guy Robert E. The other guy was Robert A. or something like that. Hanging out most of the time. Not during the school hours. I'd be kind of hanging out around the corner with a bunch of guys.
He was a corner bum.
With a bunch of guys, Joe Santacaro. We had a guy named Bobby Cardillo who he worked at a gumball factory. He's allergic to sugar. He worked
His
at a
name
gumball
was
factory.
Kaka.
His last name was Kaka.
Cardillo.
And we would get ourselves in a little bit of trouble every now and then, but not much, because I had a couple of uncles. One worked for the MDC in the down the beach that ran a snowplow. My Uncle Tony ran a snowplow down the beach, so I got a lot of people watching out for me because he knew all the, let me say, the police officers, to be nice, and so everybody was watching out for us.
That's cool.
We couldn't get away with anything. Let's put it that way.
So let's get to how did you guys meet? So now we're gonna get together where you guys get together. How did you meet?
We both worked at the Stop and Shop.
Yes.
And
I was a cashier.
She was a cashier. I was earned a nickname while I was there at the Stop and Shop. The cashiers were mostly women or girls at that time, and they'd always be looking, we need more bags, we need more bags, we need more. And I'd have to run down the cellar and get bags. And so I got the nickname of Bags. People used to call me Bags. My mother hated it, but guys used to call me, some people used to call me Bags. But that didn't last long. So actually, I would say we met down the cellar in the Stop and Shop. We started to go out with your friend there,
Tootsie
Yeah.
and Bobby. Well, no, she was going with Billy at the time.
Another friend of ours, Billy Batello, a high school friend.
So
But then it was funny because when I started going out with Kaz, Kaz's brother Jimmy and his wife Angela and my mother-in-law, Rose, came in to Stop and Shop to see what I looked like
That's future mother-in-law, by the way.
and to see if they approved of me. So they were in my line at the Stop and Shop, and my Aunt May was in front of my mother-in-law, and I said to my Aunt May, I says, "Oh, I'd like you to meet Kaz's mother." And my mother-in-law said, "She just cut in front of me." I said, "Well, this is my aunt." And I guess they approved because I married him.
I guess that's when she learned to call me, "Oh, you're going to marry that Cronenbum?"
Yeah,
that's what Auntie May said, right?
yeah. Always make sure you carry a dime in your shoe so you can call me to come and get you. He's a corner bum.
So how did you guys get engaged?
We
Did
never
we get engaged?
got
That's a good
engaged.
question. I don't know. We were just going together and going on dates. What could do for dates? I had to borrow a car because I didn't have a car. I either borrowed one of my uncles or my brother's car at the time, and we ended up going to drive-in movies,
Revere Beach.
Revere Beach most of the time.
And then Happy Valley used to be a kissing spot up
She's
there.
bringing up the good times. The good times. When we used to go down to Revere Beach, we'd drive. It'd just be her and I in the car. We'd go down to Revere Beach, and we'd watch the submarine races. And they were pretty good at Revere Beach. Another one of our favorite spots was to go to Happy Valley in Lynn. There was a nice mountain there. I went up there once. We went up there. There was two couples, Muriel and myself, and your mother and myself, and another couple, and I had Uncle Tony's car, and we got at the top, and we got stuck. The car wouldn't start. It's a good thing I knew how to drive. It was a standard shift. Everything was standard shift at the time. It's a good thing, too, because all you had to do was give it a little push, throw it in second gear, boom, and the car would start. So we were lucky that way, but had a lot of fun, different things. I mean, we were driving up that New
We had no
Hampshire.
money, but we used to enjoy ourselves.
So you never really officially got engaged like they do today.
No.
No, you won't find us on the TV someplace, kneeling down, saying,
No.
something like that.
So let's start with you, Mom, on this question. What was it about Dad that you said that told you he was the one?
He was very gentle. He was very shy.
This is my father, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, just checking.
He was very shy, your father. And he was just a nice guy. He wasn't a guy that was going to really do anything wrong to you or whatever. And he was just a nice guy. And I said, we're getting married.
Well, see, that was engaged then.
So she had to say, go ask my father.
Yeah, you have to ask my father. And my father said, yep, and I'll give you $25 to take her off my hands.
That sounds like Papa. So, Dad, what was it about Mom that told you that she was the one?
I really, it just, nothing really special about it. It was,
Wow.
It was something that kind of, I don't know, we just kind of grew together.
Yeah.
I mean, it was hard to say. What could I say? She was very pretty, beautiful woman. Oh, girl, a young girl. I don't know, a young girl at that. I would not say young girl, a young woman at that time.
was a girl.
Oh no, and nice and very pleasant, and you could tell by she always taking care of different things that she's that type of person that yeah, you could get along with, and so forth and so on, and we really enjoyed each other. Let's put it that way. Enjoyed each other, and it just grew, and it grew, and it's just something that when we got married, it was. I'll say this for it: when you get married, and we got married pretty young,
Very young.
and it seemed that the love just kept growing all the time.
How old were you when you got married?
I was almost 20.
And I was 20.
Wow.
She was 20.
So why don't you segue into that? Describe what your wedding day was like. Where was it? The reception?
My wedding day rained and rained and rained. And I cried and cried. I was so upset. I said, how can I get married on a wedding that's going to have all rain? And my Aunt Ann said to me, that means you're going to have good luck. Because if you get married on a rainy day, that means you're going to have good luck. So we got married at 3:30 at St. Anthony's Church. And I was walking down my front stairs, and all of a sudden the sun came out. So I didn't get married in the rain. I got married in the sun.
Well,
Yeah, it was a very nice day.
It turned out to be a beautiful day.
so the ceremony was at St. Anthony's. So
Yeah.
where was the reception?
At VFW's in Saugus, and we had a caterer, a Zait's caterer from Chelsea, and the meals were $1.75 a person.
Still, the $25 your dad gave you wasn't enough for that.
And the cake came with the package of the
Caterer took care of
Caterers.
all the package of meals.
everything was
The
all a
cake.
package
It
deal.
was all good.
How many people? Remember?
140.
Wow, you remember everything, huh?
Yeah, we had it was a good day. It was a good wedding. And there was one thing that significantly stuck out in my mind is that I was living on Third. I lived close to St. Anthony's Church, and she was living up in Broadway. It's about a mile away. And so you can imagine when I didn't have a car, it was a long walk, all back and forth all the time. So anyhow, I remember just leaving the house, the apartment where I lived, and going to the church and getting in the car, and we had our marriage, the reception, all that. And I forgot to bring my pants.
No, sir.
You tell them.
We had our reception, and some guy come up to me who I didn't even know was coming to the wedding. He was a relative of relatives. And he looked at me and he said, "You are beautiful." And I got so scared because I didn't know who this man was. I thought he was going to attack me or something. So I said, "Thank you." And I walked away. I was I was a very naive 20-year-old, very. And so then we left and we went to his mother's apartment to get his clothes to go on our honeymoon. And we got to Poconos Mountains in Pennsylvania. And the next day we got up and he said, "I don't have any pants." He left all his pants at his mother's house. And she had pressed and ironed everything, and he had no pants. So at 7:30 in the morning, we had to go shopping in Pennsylvania to go buy him pants so we could go for breakfast.
So you could imagine what it was like because we had the place we went to. It was a group meal, so to speak. Everybody was. It was the place. I'll explain to the place in a minute or two, but it was a group meal. Everybody was pretty newlyweds like.
Yeah, they were all newlyweds.
And they all were just saying, "Gee, They're not here for breakfast? I wonder what they are.
Wonder where Mr. and Mrs. Goodwitch are.
Anyhow, to continue on with the wedding a little bit, the wedding day a little bit, the wedding, I had, with St. Anthony's Church, used to have a rail in front of it, so receiving communion and stuff like that. And my brother was best man for me. And I had 4 ushers, and it turns out that one of them was Protestant. Not that it turns out, one of them was Protestant, so they couldn't go up to the rail, beyond the rail, because it was a Catholic church, actually. And another one of them, our friend Billy Battelle, ended up getting in an accident before the wedding. He never made it. So it was kind of a little mixed up deal, but we got through it okay.
Yeah.
And that's about, I just bring up today some of the facts of the wedding of what had happened. But it's true, I walked out of my place and we forgot to bring my pants to the wedding, to the honeymoon.
So you went to, your honeymoon was in the Poconos?
Yes.
Pocono Mountains.
And how long were you there? And what,
A whole week.
1 week?
And they had activities every day, and we'd go to different, they were like cottages.
Little cottages, yeah.
So we each had a cottage, and like the girl that got married, I forget what their names were. They were from New Jersey, and they got married on the Saturday, and we got married on the Sunday. So we really hung out with them people, and we'd do a lot, with them. We'd go on hikes and horseback riding and swimming.
Canoe. They had a canoes up there. And,
They had,
and one of the things was each had our own little cabin, and the place was just full of newlyweds, naturally. And one of the main rooms was a regular room, and they had a big yoke together kind of thing where you take a
put
picture
your head in
and you put your head through.
and they snap it.
They snap a picture, and but you had a locker there where you could put your own booze, because that was the place you got together. They have a party just about every night.
Yeah.
And a little drinking every night. I mean, you had booze in your own little room and stuff like that, but it was a good time. Everything we could do. One of the things I have to mention though is one of the first dinners we had. It was like a spaghetti and meatball dinner for everybody over there, and we're sitting there being from an Italian family. And we dig in with a fork right into the spaghetti, boom, 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 and we're looking around. Everybody's holding up with a spoon, looking at us, because we're supposed to eat spaghetti with a
How do
spoon.
you do that?
How are you doing that? And they all wanted to know how we were doing. So that was just something we could bring memories back.
So you go on your honeymoon for a week, and then
We come back.
You come back. You live together. Where are you living now?
We're not.
We're not living because my brother forgot to pick up the mattresses, so we had no bed.
But is it Revere?
Chelsea.
Chelsea. Okay, so he was supposed to get mad. So tell that story. That's
I said to my brother, Dickie, one thing I want you to do, get the mattresses for our apartment. Go put them up on the bed and stuff. And he said, yeah. And we come home from our honeymoon, we go up to the apartment, and the bed's
No mattress.
just slates. And I said, oh, God. So I said, now what are we going to do?
A motel.
So our friends, Bobby and Tootsie, got married the week after us. So I said, well, we have to go to their reception just to show our face.
He was one of my best friends. He was a
Because
best
my-
friend of ours. Yeah.
My
Okay.
mother and father were at the wedding, and I wanted to see my mother and stuff. And
Well, we dropped into the wedding, come in, and all of a sudden, oh, the honeymooners are back, and beep, 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 beep. Everybody started. A few of the people, there was a lot of people we knew because they were
they were
pretty
a
much the
true
same friends and everything and it started to break up. So I turned to her and I said, "Jan, we gotta get out of here. We're ruining the wedding." So boom, we just left, crashed the wedding and left.
And we went to
We went to a motel. There's one motel between Revere and Saugus on the highway. So we went to the motel. We spent the night at the motel. And later on, we found out that the couple that Bobby and Tootsie that got married, that though we crashed and left, they had stayed at the same motel before leaving on their honeymoon. And he said he was going to come and knock on the door. And I said, I wish you did knock on the door, because if you did, I would have left with you. I wasn't no place to sleep.
So you're living in Chelsea,
Yeah.
We lived in Chelsea.
and that's when Charles was born. So tell that story.
Oh,
Oh, God.
God. I guess I got to tell that story a
Yeah.
little bit. Go ahead. You bring up the point where you went. All right, it's a long story. Here was it, and I'm going to start it off. We were going to Dr. Ciccone, okay, as that was our family doctor. Her and I, Dr. Ciccone. Once we got married, became my doctor, who became her doctor, Dr. Ciccone. And he says,
You're pregnant.
yeah, well,
You're pregnant. You have to go see a gynecologist who was Dr. Paul from Chelsea. So I said, okay. And I went through all the pregnancy and everything. And he said to me, I was due June 25th. And he said to me, now you're due June 25th. He said, if the baby doesn't come within 2 weeks, he said, we have to induce you. So I said, really? What does that mean? Because I told you I was stupid. So we went home and everything. And at the same time, my sister-in-law was pregnant with a child also. And she went into labor on July 8th. And I was supposed to go before her. And she had Audrey. And she come home, and I started to cry. I said, I don't think this baby's ever going to come, and everything's going wrong with me. And so they lived in Lynn. So we left Lynn, and we went home. And all of a sudden that night, I started getting labor pains. So I said, I think we have to go to the hospital. So he said, okay. So we went to the hospital, and they checked me, and no, you have to walk and walk and walk. So I did. So the next day, the doctor came in. He said, you're not ready to have this baby. He says, I'm sending you home. So I said, really? So he said, yep. I said, but I'm late. So he said, nope. He said, the baby's not ready to come. So we went home, and where we lived in Chelsea, in the hospital, there were all bumpy roads. And that night...
we lived on the third floor, by the way.
Yeah, we lived on the third floor.
On the third floor in Chelsea. So, and she went to bed. She came home and went to bed.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, boom.
I woke up and I was full of blood.
So,
I had hemorrhaged.
let me say a few things. My mother had come because she was
She was babysitting on Rhonda.
on my house, that apartment. So she had been there, and I have to tell a quick story before anything goes further. I was working at Raytheon, and one of the guys I was working with said, when I was talking about, yeah, my wife is pregnant, blah, 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 having a good, heavy, who was having a hard time with labor pains. She was getting no pains at all. And he said, well, yeah, and a woman I know was getting labor pains. She ran out of her kitchen, ran out of her front door. She was panicking and dropped the baby right on the lawn. So that just stuck in my mind. So we got up, we said, call the ambulance.
And we called the
We're
wrong
leaving.
ambulance.
Well, we
'Cause
called
lived-
Chelsea ambulance, and it was going to Revere Memorial Hospital. So,
And they wouldn't
anyways,
they wouldn't come. So my mother-in-law was in the middle of the Washington Avenue.
let me go before that. point there. We were walking down the stairs, 3 flights of stairs, and I'm with my hand between her legs, just walking down the stairs. My mother's in the street. She
Looking
waved
for a
down,
cop.
and then she waved down a couple of detectives. Really.
My daughter-in-law's having a baby.
And by the time we got to the first floor, I had the baby in my hands, the part of the baby in my hands, and the
He's-
doctors, the detective just, okay, we'll take it from here, and I just laid down, and she laid on top of me, and they took the baby, and the baby was born on the front porch.
Front porch in Chelsea.
I'm in Chelsea. But as officially as Revere, because that's where they cut the cord.
Right, yeah. And then we got in an accident going to the hospital. Guys,
It's a crazy
What?
story. They took off in the ambulance, and they must, I don't know if they knew where Revere Memorial Hospital was, because it's just a side street from where we were. But they went all the way back to Revere Street, and then they turned up Mountain Ave where she lived.
and my mother said, look at those poor people, it's so hot. And they're going to the hospital not knowing it was me.
And she turned the corner to get on Mountain Ave. You hit the bump.
Sideswiped the whole car.
She took the bumper off a front car, the fender. Get to the hospital anyway.
So Charles was in isolation, so I knew he was my baby because he was all by himself.
Oh, he's yours,
So,
all right. Yeah.
quick story.
There was no mix-up there.
Quick story on the hospital. We get to the hospital. They take her, and I got to go a different route. I didn't go exactly with her. I got to go a different route. And the nurses are saying, "Oh, what can I get you? Got to get you this. Get it." I says, "All I want to know is, where can I wash my hands? Where can I wash my hands? What get you sick? I just want to wash my hands."
We'll go buy you a package of cigarettes.
And she, I don't know. And then when the second baby started to cry in there, that was it. You remember that?
Yeah, because there was someone in the delivery room,
Yes,
and they
Chuck
didn't
was
know.
born in the
They said,
delivery room.
"Oh, you just had a set of twins." I said, "Oh my God!" They didn't tell me that.
You can imagine two
But
child
there
at
was
home.
two.
You can
So,
laugh about it now.
Oh, I cried that day.
so from Chelsea, you moved to Wakefield, or was
Revere.
it? So you moved to Revere.
We moved to my mother's friend's house
Where was that?
on Alston Street, Revere.
Right
And,
next to the park.
and then you had me in Revere.
I had you in Revere.
Oh, that's another story.
I didn't know there was a story to
Oh,
that.
there's another story to you, too. Yeah, you, like I said, your mother had no pains.
I get
pains
no
at all.
labor pains, but
So,
I'm shaking right
not
now.
having
baby.
pains, not having pains prior to making delivery, your kids become a lot of pains after delivery and stuff like that. No, that's just a joke. Yeah, what is this? After the Dr. Paul incident in the hospital with Charles, we go to Dr. Saccone for checkups. When she gets pregnant for the second time, and what did you say to Dr. Saccone?
I said, I don't want Dr. Paul.
Don't want you're delivering.
I said, you're delivering my baby. So
I'm not. You're delivering the baby. Okay.
So he did. And I went to him that day, and he said to me, you're not ready to have the baby. I said, okay. And so I went home, and we had pizza with my brother. And all of a sudden, my body started shaking, and I started getting nervous. And I said to him, we have to go to the hospital.
In Waterboro.
And he, no, Valerie.
Valerie. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So he said, okay. So we called you have to call the doctor to tell him that you're going to the hospital. So the wife says, no, you're not. She's got to have labor pain, but you don't get labor pains. I'm taking her to the hospital.
Yeah. I said,
So he got there at 11:30. We got there at 11:30 at night.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, Dr. Saccone come out and he said to him, don't go home. She's
Don't
ready
go
to
home."
have her baby. And you were born in a half an hour.
4 minutes after 12.
And you were living in Revere then, so then let's talk about Val. Are you
Well,
still living in Revere?
We're still living in
On
Revere.
Alston Street?
Alston Street, yes. And I got pregnant. You were 8 months old when I got pregnant. You had the mumps. His throat was all swollen and everything. And the doctor calls me up and he says, "You're pregnant." I said, "Oh my God. 3 kids in diapers. I just can't do it." So I called him up and I started swearing at him. "You son of a bitch, you've got me pregnant again."
I knew it was me.
And then Valerie was born October 7th, but she was 5 hours because she was caught in the cervix.
Yeah, she was.
She had a hard time.
She had the afterbirth of the
Yeah.
I forget what you call
Placenta.
wrapped around her or something.
So after Val's born, so you got 3 kids. So a family of 5, and you're still in the apartment in
It's
Revere?
still a 4-room apartment.
So when did you decide to move and buy a house?
Well,
Is it
we
because you
couldn't aff-
outgrew it?
We couldn't afford anything, so we had to wait. And I had 2 boys in 1 bedroom, you and your brother. And then Valerie slept with us in the crib. I had 2 cribs and a bed for Charles. And finally I said to him, "We can't live here. There's no place to move." I mean, the apartments were not big. They were small
So how did you choose Wakefield to move to?
because that's where I came from.
So you
And
went back to your...
It was on the priority list. We were looking. It wasn't like we were looking. We had a real estate agent looking for us. Okay, and in that area, Saugus, Revere, preferably Wakefield, and it's funny. His name was Arthur House, so we knew him as A House. And he found a place on Main Street, and I went and looked at it.
He did because we didn't have a babysitter, so I had to stay home.
And I looked at it, and I liked it, and I even told her about it, and so it was
$11,900 for the house.
no,
Oh, 11.
no.
18. 18,000.
The house
Sorry.
cost us. I only had enough for like 17,000, and the house was like 18,900. I had to pay for it 18,500. I had to borrow money from my father to pay for it. To get a mortgage. Let me
Yeah,
say, I had to borrow
yeah,
money from my
yeah.
father to get a mortgage.
To get the money to put down.
Yeah, and but there was we went when we finally went to sign papers on the thing. The woman over there, what was her name again? Remember her name?
No. I don't want to sell this
The
house.
man and a woman. They were older, and
He owned a liquor
all of a
store in
sudden-
Wakefield.
All of a sudden, she pops out. I don't want to sell the house. And the lawyer sitting there said, "What?" Says, "No, I don't want to sell the house."
I love
Says,
my
"Well,
house."
that's it. You don't want to sell the house. Forget it. They're out of here." He says, "Okay, I'll sell the house."
So you moved to Wakefield. Now, this next question. So the rest of your family, people who are most interested in this, have 2 kids. Jacqueline has 2 kids. Michael has 2 kids. My brother has 2 kids. My sister has 2 kids. We have 2 kids. So you've got 3 kids. So what is it like raising 3 kids so close together in age? It must be unique.
It's tough to get service for 4.
It was very hard. It was hard because we had no extra money. He only worked, he worked at Raytheon. He was going to school and at Northeastern. And, but we made it work. We just did without. We couldn't buy extravagant things or anything. If we needed something, we'd have to think twice about how we were going to pay it and stuff. I mean, our lives were very restricted because we didn't have a lot of money. We weren't rich.
We were doing okay.
Not when you were making $1.75 an hour.
So, Dad, tell us about working, right? So you start at Raytheon out of high school.
Yeah. High school wise, I worked at the Stop and Shop, and I had gone to them and say I want a full time job when I graduated, and they says, no, we don't need any full time. I don't know if they like me or not, but no, it was I didn't get a job, so I did a little work for the city because my uncle had connections, so to speak, and working for driving a pickup truck, go clean streets and stuff like that. And it came to, I just said to myself, come next year after December, I'll just have to probably join the service or something like that because I'm not getting a job. My brother, just before that December, he had come to me and says, Raytheon is hiring apprentices, drafting apprentices. I was draftsman in school. I took drafting. He said, take it to Watertown and you take a test. So I took a test in Watertown, drafting, and you do some work with drafting. And it turned out they were looking for 20 people, and I guess they had 140 showed up. 140 they interviewed or tested, whatever you want to call it. I think it was tested more than interviewed. And I was one of the 20 that had the job. So I ended up working at Watertown for about 2 weeks, and the lettering was good. I was doing it, and it was good. My work was good there, and so a manager in drafting in Raytheon and Bedford needed some help, probably some cheap help to do tracings and things like that. And I was one of the ones selected, so I ended up in Raytheon in the apprentice program. They call it the apprentice program, which is what they call a 6,000 hour program. 6,000 hours means you got to work 6,000 hours before you be out of the apprentice. But during the way, if you're working 6 months, you get in for review, and you was always getting a bonus well, we can kick 3,000 off now. You're that good. We'll kick 3,000 off, not 6,000 off, but we'll kick 300 off, 300 off. The hours would get kicked away, like you had to become a full-fledged draftsman. So that's how I got to Raytheon as a drafting.
And then talk about your promotions through the company.
Well, those were the promotions before getting out of the drafting, the apprenticeship program. Worked in drafting, and I did a good job. I did a really good job. Got every review period, I got a good review, got a raise, got a good review, got a raise, got a good review, got a raise. Finally, as years went by, I got in charge of my own group, which was made up of a couple of checkers, doing drawings and design work, a couple of checkers, about 6 draftsmen, and me as a leader handing out work, checking the work, making sure they're doing the right thing and stuff like that, and just checking, getting things done and so forth. And I came to realize, I made a lot of friends right there, and I came to realize that even a lot of guys that were on the board had more years in the company than me. In other words, they were older than me, 3 or 4 years older, 5 or 6 years older than me, and more experience. So as I'm working there, when it happened, is the boss called me, and I said to myself, I got 5 or 6 guys in front of me before any promotions come up. I'm gonna go anyplace. They got more seniority and so forth and so on. So I said, I guess I better go back to school. So I had put in the year at Northeastern, and then the company was offering free. Actually, if you maintain a B average, they pay for your college. So that's when I got going nights to Northeastern University, Lincoln College, and so that's eventually after I got that. I got the piece of paper. He kicked me out as the configuration manager. And I always asked him. I says, why are you kicking me out? Why are you picking me when you have all these senior guys in front of me? Stuff like that. I said, because I want the best. That's why I got the job as a supervisor, and then gone on beyond that.
So, Mom, tell us about your work history, because your first big job was raising 3 kids, and tell us how your work history developed.
My girlfriend, Joan, lived across the street, and she had a daughter, and her daughter was looking for a job. And she said, Muriel, want to take a walk with me?
What's the time frame here? How old is Val? 8?
Yeah, she was like 8 years old. And I said, yeah, I'll take a walk with you. So we walked. She said, I'm going to Polypax. So I said, where is Polypax? Because I didn't have a car, nothing. I just used to stay in the house and clean the house and everything. And so she says, up on Water Street. She says, come with me. So I did. Well, I went in the office, and my girlfriend's daughter went in. And all of a sudden they come out to me and they said, would you like a job? And I said, no, I'm not here for the job. She's here for the job. She says, no. She says, we want mothers who can work different hours. She says, your hours would be 9 to 3, 9 to 2:30, I'm sorry. And I said, oh, I got 3 kids. I don't think I can do that. So Valerie had just started first grade, and I said, I think I'm going to try and go to work. So he said, you think you can do it? And I said, yeah, I think I can. So I called Mary Ann Carmody up, and I asked her, I said, what are the criteria is for me to come and apply for a job? She says, you're hired. I noticed you the first time you came in. She said, I want you because you're a mother, and we just do mother's hours.
Well, Val's in first grade. She's 6, not 8.
Well, so she was 6.
just checking. I don't want everyone to know that Val was kept back. So then from Polypax, you worked there, 15 years?
I worked there 15 years, and they had all profit sharing. They were a very, very nice company to work for. They used to have a lot of Christmas parties, and we really had a lot of fun.
So we had one car, and Dad took that to work. So how did you get the Polypax?
I made him buy me a car.
Maybe.
And I said, I need a car. I had gotten my license when I was 30 years old. After my 3 kids, I decided I needed a license. So I got my license in Revere. And then I said to him, I need a car because I'm going to go to work. You can't work. You got enough work here. I said, no, I'm going to work. I need sanity. So I worked there 15 years, and then I stopped working. Well, the place closed down. And another friend of mine, Sheila Sweeney, she said she was going to work at Wells Fargo, which was right down the street from where I lived. So she said, come with me, you can get a job here. I said, I'm not going to work in there. Well, when I went in for the interview, there were all bars on the walls, and I said, oh my God, what am I getting myself in for? So I got that job.
That's the armored car place, right?
Counting money.
Yeah.
Counting money.
Yeah.
They'd put you in a cage, and they'd lock the door, and you'd get tons of money from Stop and Shop, but you had to verify all the money. And if it didn't come out right, you had to stay there until the money came out right. And when some nights we were there until 7, 8 o'clock because the money wouldn't balance.
So one of the things, if I ever complained about is spending $2 or $3, they come over, I just counted out a couple of $100 million. Maybe about a dollar or two.
Yeah. I said, you know how much money I counted today? So I worked there for like 5 years. And then from there, I was retired, I thought. And I went to the drugstore, and they were looking for a bookkeeper. And Marie Vallado had said to me, Muriel, would you like a part-time job? I said, no, I just quit Wells Fargo. I don't want a part-time job. She says, oh, you can make your own hours, do your own thing. And at the time, Charles had gotten married, and he had a son, which I was supposed to babysit for on Fridays because they didn't have a babysitter, and Rosemary worked in Melrose. And I said, well, I have to talk it over with Kaz. And then he said, yeah, go ahead. It's only a couple of hours a day. So I went down. I said, now, what are the hours? She says, you can come and go as you please. If you get your work done, she says, you can go home for the day. So I said, that's beautiful. And Friday's off. So I worked there for 10 years.
And then you retired for good.
Then I retired for good.
So,
You're getting an earful, Jacqueline.
so I didn't know you didn't get your driver's license till you were 30. So
30.
you didn't drive for the first 30 years of your life, and you haven't driven for the last 30 years. So
Yeah, that's right.
you haven't driven in over 30 years now. So I know one of the important things and the fun times were Sundays at our house.
Yes.
And to talk about how important it was and how much fun we had with Sundays. How did it all develop? How did our house become the watering hole?
Ah, that's a good question. Well, one of the things was my mother was alone. You know, because
Your father had died.
my father passed away in, 66. So my mother was alone. Her mother and father were alone. So we used to just, one of the things we did every Sunday, just about every Sunday, was I'd call up my mother and say, you want to come over for dinner? And she'd say, no, too much trouble. You're going to drive all the way here. Blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah, too much trouble. That's all I hear, too much trouble, which meant, come and get me. That's the way it turned out to me. You know, come and get me. So I'd come and get her and my mother-in-law, father-in-law, Gigi, Silly, and they spend it over our house. They love it. They do all the cooking. The three of them would do cooking all the time, and Gigi go sit out in the back, whatever he wanted to do. That was it. So it was good for them.
And it was, they'd come in and my mother would make fried dough after dinner and mess up my whole stove. But I'd say, that's okay. They're enjoying themselves. Let her do. And Grammy Rose used to come and cut everybody's hair. And they enjoyed coming to our house. Yeah. So then on Christmas, we used to go for Chinese food after church.
On Christmas Eve.
On Christmas Eve. And then from there, we'd pick up my mother-in-law and would go from aunt's house to aunt's house, which they lived in Lynn. And after like 5 or 6 years, I said, I can't do this anymore. So I said, I'm having Christmas Eve at my house. So that's when I decided to have Christmas Eve. And I invited his brother, my brother, my aunt May's whole family, my aunt Mickey, she used to come. And we used to have like 25, 30 people for Christmas Eve dinner. And my mother-in-law and I would cook all the food.
All the fish.
All the fish. We have all the fish. And I would work for days and days. And then after Christmas, then I'd have New Year's Eve parties for the grown-ups. the kids would go upstairs and watch TV. You don't remember that?
Of course, I remember being excluded.
And then I'd have a grown-up New Year's Eve party
Yeah.
at our house.
So on Sundays, not only the crowd always grew, so it would start with Grammy Rose, Grammy Philly, and Papa,
Right.
and so it would be
But then
8
after
of us,
that,
and then by the end of the day,
there was like 15, 20 people.
yeah, so
Yeah. Everyone enjoyed coming to our house. They just
It was a lot of
felt
fun.
very comfortable, and I call because he'd get mad at me. What are you cooking? What are you in here cooking for? I said, because I enjoy it. I like to see the people be happy and eating, and we always had 15, 20 people for dinner. And you'd say to me, why are all these people here all the time? Why don't they stay home? And I'd say, no, I enjoy it. Now I think back and I look back and everything, and it's the best thing I ever did. Really.
We used to have a lot of fun with the family and everything else.
I mean, then when we had the pool,
We played cards all the time. Every weekend we would play cards on Saturday nights. And, you know, with the aunts out in West Peabody and all that. So it was fun.
it was every Friday night, right? It was
Friday or
Auntie May,
Saturday.
It must have
Auntie
been Friday
Dot.
because then Saturdays, I used to pick up my mother on Saturdays, come over and babysit. She's babysits
And then we'd
Saturday
go
night,
bowling.
And we'd belong to bowling league. And that was our dates after marriage,
Bowling League.
bowling.
after kids.
So let's talk about your decision to retire, because you retired rather young.
I actually things had changed the Raytheon to the point where it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same in business, and I went from a job which was doing a lot of traveling with liaison with the government and so forth and so on to reorganizations and to being alone with product assurance. It got too complex, complicated, and I wasn't enjoying it anymore. I was not. I didn't want to get up to work to go to morning to go to work. Didn't want to go to work in the morning. So I decided. They came around when everything was slowing down. They came around. It was 1998, and they came around and says, "We're going to go for a voluntary layoff." So they had a voluntary layoff at Raytheon. You probably all would know. What shocked me was the boss was surprised when he came around to me and says, "I have to offer this to you, a voluntary layoff. You can talk to personal relations if you want to think about it. But I'll see you." No, I said I'm interested. He says, "You're what?" I said, "I'm interested." Well, I was the go-to guy in the department when you had to get something done, anyways, in that particular organization. So I went to public relations, and they had 401ks at the time, and they had other things that we had taken care of earlier. And being almost 40 years in the company, I had a full year of severance pay, a full half year of severance pay coming. I could always get COBRA for health insurance. I said, you know what? Bye, Raytheon, and I just decided to leave. The big thing that made the decision for me to leave was finding out that taking voluntary layoff, I was still considered an active employer for three more years, which meant that if I go to age 60, I still get the full pension as if I never left the place. You know, it wasn't cut back from age 65 like normal pensions are. That's it. We can do it. I'll see you later.
So you retire in 98 at age 58, and you...
Let me put it this way. The way I put it, I stopped work at age 58. I retired at 60.
Okay.
Because I had to be 60 to retire to get the full benefits.
So then you decide to look for a retirement house in Arizona,
Las Vegas.
in Las Vegas, but you chose Arizona. But before we get to why you chose Arizona, talk about 9/11. Because you were coming out to buy your house.
You want to talk about 9/11?
I mean, you can if you want. You don't have to if you don't want to.
Well, 9/11 was.
We were living at Val's.
Well, before we get to 9/11, we're going to talk about getting to live to Arizona. We were going twice a year. We were going to Vegas. We would go to Vegas in like October and May. We would go to Vegas, and I did a lot of traveling to Tucson with Raytheon. I liked the weather and everything out in Tucson. Of course, I wasn't there for full summer, but and I liked, I wasn't a snow person. Let me put it that way. I wasn't a snow person. I was getting away from the snow. So she didn't mind, going to Vegas back and forth. And then what had happened is we were looking. In the meantime, you had bought a place over here in Arizona. And we were, where I was not working, I was coming here for 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, something like that, staying with you. And, it just grew on us a little bit and look around Arizona. And then my brother got a place, Mountain Brook Village, where we live now, so he was there too. So we went over to my brother's one time and we were sitting there and talking, and there was flyers out on Mountain Brook Village about how much you could save and all this kind of stuff. Prime yards, prime golf course lots, reduced and all that kind of thing. So it turns out that we walked over to the business place from my brother's. We walked over there and it showed us a lot that she said, I like this lot, I like this lot. It was just a lot, empty lot. I said, you're serious? She said, yes. I said, well, we're going to leave. We're leaving. We did everything within 3 days. We had everything picked and everything else that what they could do, and we'll see you later when we come back. And that's how we bought it.
So that's how you chose Arizona.
Yeah.
So you're coming back to move, right? For good?
Oh, coming back. We had
The house was finished in September. Mm-hmm. So we were coming back to sign the papers. So I said, we'll go in a week early and we'll go buy furniture, and that way we'll have furniture. Because we were still staying with you.
We're planning on staying with you for a week.
And it was September 11th. And we were at Val's house. And we left, got to the airport. It was a beautiful day. Mm-hmm. Packed people.
Had suitcases galore and carries-on galore.
Yeah, because we were moving. So we had to take all our suitcases and everything. And we got on the airplane. And then the pilot come on. He said, well, today we have a glorious day.
Yeah, keep in mind before you get away from that to fly, we were flying from Boston to Denver to Phoenix. Oh. And when you fly Boston to Denver, the route takes you over Canada. So when we took off at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know what time we got over Canada, but we were over Canada, and the plane started to circle, and some people picked it up as the plane. So the pilot finally said, you notice we're circling over here, and he came on and he said, the ground control radar in the United States has broken down, something like that. It is not working, so we can't fly into the States until they get it working. And we were still circling. And then finally, after a while, they come on and says, well, we're going to have to refuel the plane because we can't make it to Denver without refueling, and we have to land in Toronto. So we landed in Toronto, and once we landed, that's when all hell broke loose. What do you mean no? All hell broke loose when we landed there. We're not going anyplace.
I got up to go to the bathroom.
Got to go through customs.
Excuse me. I went to the bathroom. And I come out and I said to the stewardess, "Are we going to Denver?" And she turned and looked at me and she says, "Go sit in your chair and don't move." And I come back and I said to him, "Something's happening." She told me to go sit in my chair and don't move. At that time, the girl behind me, her phone went off. And that someone had called to tell her that the plane had bombed New York. And I said,
She didn't tell you that.
no, she did, because she started to cry. She was crying and
Tell
sobbing.
her anything.
Huh?
She didn't tell you anything.
No, she didn't, but just look on her face. Knew that something bad was happening.
Yeah, it might
Because
have been
someone
nothing but
had
a
called
plane.
and told her that the plane just went through the Trade Center. So I turned to him and I said, something is happening. And the lady across me, she had her rosary beads out, all her prayer books. I took my rosary beads out and all my prayer books. And I said, "Please, dear God, please don't let anything happen to us."
So once we get into Toronto, yeah, I tried calling cell phone, couldn't call anybody on the cell phone. And I hadn't told anybody here
Where we would go.
of my itinerary except Kenneth because he was the only one that was picking me up. So he's the only one that had to know. Really? So the only one I was able to reach was him. And it's just, we're in Toronto, we're safe, call everybody.
Oh, Mary's mother called you and said to Mary, "I know your mother-in-law's leaving. When are they getting there?" She says, "Oh, today." She says, "No, I don't think so." She said, "They just bombed the Trade Center."
We didn't know that.
We didn't know anything. It was
But
the most horriblest day of my life.
then there was a week of, well, actually, that was a Tuesday morning.
We had no suitcases, nothing, but the clothes on our back.
Well, the plane
For 3
got
days.
confiscated. The plane got confiscated because we took
I
off
used to
at the
wash
same time.
my underwear, hang them up, and put them on wet for the next day. For 3 days.
And all we saw was the gosh darn planes going into the tower for 3 days.
Was the most horrible thing.
And then we finally got clearance to, we were leaving, we were in the Canadian airport. Every day they'd say, "You're leaving, go to the airport, nothing's
Take
happening."
all our
Boom,
suitcases.
boom, boom, back and forth. And like I told everybody before, I guess, is the strangest thing I ever saw in my life was looking down the tarmac, or not the tarmac, but looking into the terminal, and everybody's in Canada Airport, they're flying. The places are crowded down there, and all you see is 3 people come walking out with machine guns on their chest, walking with fatigues, walking up and down. The stewardesses were stuck with us, the pilot was stuck with us.
Yeah, nobody could move.
And the stewardesses even said there was two guys that were real strange on the plane. One was in the front, one was in the back.
One sat right in front of me,
They were holding their suitcases.
Their briefcases.
Or briefcase, whatever it is.
and he did say, "Do you want something to drink?" No. And then once the plane landed, they
Never saw them again.
never saw them. So I
A lot
think
of people hired a car, rented a car, and went back to Boston. And she said, "Well, go
I
back to
want
Boston."
to go home. He says,
Can't
"You
go
don't
back
have
to
a
Boston.
home." I said,
Can't go back
"That's
to
all I want
Boston."
to do is go home."
So that went finally was a Friday. Thursday actually. We were
Yeah.
able to fly to Denver, but Denver was closed, except for the one terminal. I don't know what other terminal, but they were only accepting planes that were out of the country, into the country. That was that was deserted, whatever, out of the country back in, and that's when that Friday morning or the Friday whenever I got there, and you were the only one standing there. She bawled like hell.
He said, "Oh," I went up to him. I said, "Kenneth." He said, "Why are you crying?" He said, "You almost didn't have a mother and father. Why are you crying?"
But that was 9/11.
So you retire in Arizona. What's been your favorite part of being retired? What's the favorite part of retirement?
Doing nothing.
doing nothing.
No, actually freedom. I would call it freedom. Free to do anything I want, anytime I want to do it. No. Within reason, naturally.
Yeah.
But it's no ties. No ties to a schedule, no ties to the clock. If you want to eat at 6 in the morning, you eat at 6 in the morning. You want to eat at 8 in the morning, you eat at 8 in the morning. Whenever you get up, you eat. When you're hungry, you eat. I mean,
We just
it's
enjoy each other's company.
Yeah.
And we just like being together.
we did a lot of traveling to the Laughlin from here. You know, we used to run back and forth to Laughlin a lot. What else?
We never.
And we never went traveling abroad and stuff like that.
We only went to Bermuda 3 times, but we never traveled
Yeah,
because
we
we
didn't
couldn't
travel.
afford it to travel. So that's why I put the pool in my backyard.
That was, yeah,
And I
before
figured
we
people
traveled.
would come to us, and
No, that was our vacation.
yeah, that was our
The
vacation.
backyard.
Yeah,
But in retirement, what's your favorite part, Ma?
just being free.
Oh.
Really, and hope I live a nice long life.
We enjoy each other's company.
Yeah.
We look at see what we got. We're pretty happy with what we've got. What we've
We
been
didn't have a
through,
lot of money, but we had a lot of fun.
and the results of our labors
Yeah.
and our enjoyments.
I have no more questions. Do you have, is there anything you want to add? Is it something I missed?
think I was just adding it. Is that you know we well, like we're joined at the hip. Let's put it that way. The two of us are joined at the hip, and we got a lot to be
Thankful for.
thankful for when we look around and see, and then the stories we hear in Mountain Brook Village. Yeah, we got a lot to be thankful for.
You know,
Regrets? I don't know.
I mean,
I think you can always find regrets if you want to think back in your life. You can always think back, oh, I should have done this, I should have. Yeah, you know, I should have bought Microsoft when it first came out, things like that. You get these regrets. But you got to live past them. Got to live past them. That's all.
Mom, anything you want to add?
I just think we're very lucky to have each other, and that we didn't have a lot of everything, but we had a lot of happy times, and we enjoyed every minute of it. If I could go back to my days in Wakefield, I would go back in a minute.
To those Sundays I was talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, God.
And the pool and all the company.
That's missed.
I
Here's-
worked.
Missed.
Here's, I'm just going to add something because I didn't want to take anything over, but you hate the water, you hate swimming, you fear it. I mean, I saw you in the shallow end of Bobby and Tootsie's pool, frantic, like, and my dad's just saying, "Well, just stand up," and yet you put a built-in pool in your backyard.
But my family.
Because you want everyone there. Yeah.
Yeah, I did it for my family. And when Charles dunked me in the pool, Dad said, "Mom, open your legs," and I did, and he went boom, and he pushed me down under.
That's one
that
another
was-
time they said stand up and go out. 4 feet
He
high.
said, "Stand up." I said, "I can't. I don't know how."
Oh, well, thanks so much for doing this because, like I said, I'm fortunate enough. Whenever we have dinner, we can talk about this stuff. So this will be great for everybody who lives across the country. So
Yeah.
thanks for doing that.
You're welcome. I enjoyed doing it, and I just hope I wasn't too
You're always too.
saying too much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're ready to record.